Good morning, students. In this video series, we are going to discuss about central nervous system. In this first video, I will tell you about the basics in central nervous system. Central nervous system is made up of two parts, brain and spinal cord. The brain is divided into three compartments, forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. Spinal cord is extracranial component, while the brain is intracranial component. Now this forebrain, what I tell you earlier, is divided into two components. One is telencephalon and another one is diencephalon. The telencephalon is commonly called the cerebral hemisphere. It is the largest portion of the central nervous system and it is consists of cerebral cortex, subcortical structure, that is subcortical white matter, and basal nuclei, that is the telencephalon. The diencephalon is made up of thalamus and hypothalamus. This diencephalon is made up of four main components: the thalamus, subthalamus, hypothalamus, and epithalamus. Of them, thalamus is critically involved in a number of functions associated with relaying. Now, next one is the diencephalon. Now, what are the functions of diencephalon? It plays an important role in association with autonomic functions, endocrine functions, motor functions, homeostasis, hearing, vision, smell, and taste. That is the functions associated with the diencephalon. The another part is the midbrain, that is called as mesencephalon. This midbrain is basically made up of tectum and tegmentum. And third part is the hindbrain, which is made up of medulla, pons, and cerebellum. The midbrain basically connects the forebrain and hindbrain. This midbrain acts as a bridge and it transmits the signal from the hindbrain toward the forebrain. That is the basic component, basic function of the midbrain. Now the question is, what are the functions of midbrain? Midbrain basically regulates vital, cardiac, and respiratory functions. It acts as a vehicle for sensory information. It is associated with vision, hearing, motor control, sleep, and wake cycles, alertness, and temperature regulations. It contains tracts that carry signals from cerebrum to the medulla and to the cerebellum. These are some functions listed or associated with the midbrain. Now the hindbrain. Hindbrain is a well-protected central core of the brain. The hindbrain basically includes cerebellum, reticular formation, brainstem, which are responsible for some of the most basic autonomic functions of the life, such as breathing and movements, etc. The brainstem contains the pons and medulla oblongata. Now, once we understand this structure, divisions of the brain, as a summary, I'll just tell you what are the parts of brain. It has two components, intracranial and extracranial. Intracranial component, that is the brain itself, and extracranial, that is the spinal cord. Intracranial component brain is divided into three parts, forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Forebrain is made up of telencephalon and diencephalon. That is, respectively, the telencephalon is made up of cerebral cortex and subcortical structures. Diencephalon, thalamus, and hypothalamus. Mesencephalon is midbrain, while when we see the hindbrain, which is associated with the medulla oblongata and pons, these are connected to the spinal cord. I hope you understand the first part associated with the basic structure of the brain. Now, once we understand the basic structure of the brain, then we'll see the divisions or parts of cerebral hemisphere. Cerebral hemisphere is the largest part of the brain, which is divided into different lobes. Frontal lobe, occipital lobe, parietal lobe, and temporal lobe. This is broadly divided into these four groups. The frontal lobe. Primary function of the frontal lobe is associated with the motor activity. Occipital lobe associated with the visual activity. Parietal lobe somatosensor activity, while the temporal lobe auditory and olfactory activity. That means the frontal lobe plays an important role in association with motor planning and execution, attention, etc. Temporal lobe associated with the memory, language and emotions. Parietal lobe associated with the spatial attention, while the occipital lobe associated with the vision. I hope you understand these four parts. It's very simple to remember. What are the parts of cerebral hemisphere? Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe and temporal lobe. Frontal lobe associated with the motor planning and activity. Occipital lobe, visual activity. Temporal lobe, auditory and olfactory associated. And parietal lobe, somatocenter activity. I hope you understand these parts of the brain. With this, I close this video, and in next video, we'll discuss about one of the most important part, that is synapse. With this, I close this video.